We go. Welcome to today's call. It is Friday, my favorite day of the week because I'm with you, and this is Friday the 13th. Don't you love Friday the 13th for sales training? Lean in when the dog bites on Friday the 13th. All right, I'm excited to do this call today because we have had some really good calls this week, not the least of which was the call that we did for the TRC Campfire group. If you're hearing that for the first time and you're wondering what the heck is the Campfire is agent training at a very basic level for sales orientation strategy. And then we get over here into the details of things like scripting and what to say. But strategically speaking, twice a month for all of the agents who are parts of teams of members of my mastermind or their direct Campfire members who are looking for that basic agent training. That's a bi-weekly call. You should put it on your schedule because 2 weeks from yesterday's Thursday, we'll be on it again. But today is a sales training call. And I want to get right after it because we have had an interesting week about, and this continues to be a theme here, by the way. Is it the formula or is it your talent and what you say? And so how scripted should something be, should it be? And I do believe in formulas. But if it gets too scripted, I think we're losing ourselves. And that's been a constant theme on these sales training calls. And I think it's important to understand, if you know a professional salesperson in this context of real estate like me or a couple of my mastermind members that I was referencing recently like Paul Mihalowicz, we follow a formula. And I think for us top producers, it's important to get that formula out of our head onto paper, use things like infographics and outlines to keep the conversation around the sale organized and rooted, whether it's inside on the phone, whether it's outside face-to-face, doesn't matter. It's the same thing that we're trying to articulate. So I want to get right after that today because yesterday, as we went through this outline, Patrick had a lot of good questions for me as they related to, okay, now when you get down into the pricing it right, and I'll set up the context here in a second, but it is important to understand that we go from having this situation where we're giving them the outline. But there's a way that you want to arrive at this relationship from the very first point. And again, I don't care whether we're talking about inside sales on the phone or outside sales when you arrive in the house. It really all needs to be very consistently the same, he said, okay? When you confuse, you lose. And I see a lot of, especially in marketing, I see a lot of people taking their marketing message and making it very different from what they're actually going to say in the house. And I think that's a mistake. And the reason I think it's a mistake is because you end up confusing them with too many messages. And that's not what you want to do. You want to really stay on target and on track. It's very important to do so. So in the context of the seller stuff that we do, we want to make sure that the first thing that you're doing is establishing relationships. So when I open up the microphones today, I know that yesterday, on yesterday's call, we had Lisa, we had Angela, we had Bridget, we had Andrew. We had a lot of people that were really, asking some good questions and making some good commentary about what they perceive to be the right thing to do. And then I want to close that gap between perception and arming you all with the right tools. That's my goal here today, right? So I want to make sure that we get this going. So let me open up the mics. And remember, *6 mutes your mic if you're in a noisy place. *7 unmutes it. I don't like to mute people, so I want you to pay attention, okay? So here we go. 1 second. All right, check. Here we go. So I know, Bridget, I can see you in there. You did an awesome job yesterday. I don't know if we have Angela. I think we might have you two in here. I know Andrew usually rolls in here too. But anybody from yesterday's call want to just confirm that they were there with me on the Campfire call? Because you guys really started me into something I want to continue today. Yes?
I'm here, Danny. I'm just walking the dog really quick, so I'm going to mute the mic
for a second. Okay, who's that, by the way? Who's that?
This is Lisa.
All right, Lisa. Awesome. Fantastic. Who else do I have from yesterday's call?
Hey, Danny. It's Angela.
Awesome, Angela. Good. Who else? Patrick, do I have you? Did I hear you too?
Yeah.
All right, awesome. And do we have Andrew yet as well? Okay, no Andrew yet. Bridget, do we have you?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, fab. All right. So, Patrick, why don't you pick it up? Since you were asking me the question, I'll let you give everybody the context of what you were listening to and how you arrived at that conversation, okay? Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I think where we had left off yesterday was, you were kind of explaining sort of when when you're having a conversation with a seller, how you're kind of demonstrating value to that person and getting yourself in the front door. And part of that was pricing out different aspects of the home and how they can have an effect, a direct effect on the sale price of the home. Mm-hmm. And so, we were talking about, for an example of an updated kitchen and how, a professional real estate agent will come in and factor that into what the asking price can be, and also having the ability to compare a home with an updated kitchen versus one that doesn't have one, and how, you have to take a step back as the seller and look at it through the buyer's eyes and think, okay, well, if he has this other option, right? If this buyer has, if they're looking at 3 houses and 2 of them have beautiful kitchens and yours doesn't, that's something you have to think about, and you have to match the price to make it attractive enough for that buyer to start considering your home instead of the ones that already have all the bells and whistles all set up.
Yeah, right. Okay, and so go a little bit further. Tell me a little bit more about, is it really the dialogue that you wanted to know, or your curiosity was, again, when you have this challenge of how do you deal with this whole thing? Because Laura and I are dealing with one of our clients right now, and I was explaining to him the same thing there. And so,
well, yeah, dialogue is really, I think what our, the agents on our team, and I think everybody's teams would benefit a lot from is sort of, getting some advice from you, and then of course from all the other masterminds and team leaders on the call, is, how does that conversation sound when you're talking to a seller, for example, who does not have, let's just stay with the kitchen example, who doesn't have an updated kitchen, but they want to price their house the same as the comp that you're showing them that does. What are you saying to that person? How aggressive are you? How not aggressive are you? And I know another big part of our call yesterday was reading the sort of the cues of the person that you're speaking with and kind of matching their personality type. Yeah. So I know it's sort of like a sliding scale, and you kind of got to play the field. But we would love some advice as far as what does your conversation sound like when you're kind of maybe. I think generally what we're talking about is like maybe a slightly unrealistic seller.
Yeah, for sure.
To get them to bring them into reality on what their home's value really is.
Well, I think to a certain extent, the first thing is most sellers are unrealistic. If you've ever gone to sell your own house like I have multiple times, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to be unrealistic because the thing that we all hope for when we own an asset, and I don't like this whole rich dad, poor dad thing that calls, a property not an asset. It's not an income producing asset unless, of course, you rent it, but it is an asset. And on a balance sheet, that's exactly what it is, and it can appreciate or depreciate. And so we really hope that when we own this property, we hope that it appreciates. That's our hope. And most people are delusional to believe that a home always appreciates, and that's not necessarily the case. In fact, during great recessions, it's the devaluation of assets like this that reset a marketplace. But furthermore, with our product, it's the natural depreciation of the aging of the product itself. You can't stop that. Of course, one of the worst depreciating assets is an automobile, right? It just depreciates incredibly quickly for a lot of reasons, not the least of which it goes out of style year to year. Right? Season to season, cars go out of style because there's so much quick technological advance. So to that extent, a house is physically a depreciating asset. The windows get old, the roof gets old, the siding, etc. And so I think the delusion that sellers have, or the hope that this isn't going wrong for them, is that, well, these windows, they get defensive. Right? Because nobody really ever really thinks, and what we should be doing as real estate agents better as time goes on, and this is for all my mastermind members especially, we should be paying attention 100% to coaching them the minute they buy from us. So the number one past client follow-up, Patrick, would be indeed to continue to coach people on best practices to maintain their house over a long period of time so that this real kick in the teeth someday doesn't come in the form of major deferred maintenance. When you buy a property, it's best to buy a property that doesn't put you at the top of your financial situation so that there is some breathing room to do some work and upgrade the property. and it needs to be maintained, because in the eye of the beholder, you can't just, the buyer being the beholder, they can't walk in and just inherit your crap and your lack of deferred maintenance without some massive price reduction. So I think just us putting that right back on the table and saying it's very important to understand ourselves that we're walking into an asset that's depreciating. And in fact, even new construction is not perfect. Things aren't done perfectly there. And there can be all sorts of things that happen right when construction's done, or there's a punch list, etc. But I think that's the nature of the product that we have to embrace here first, and not be afraid to have that conversation with them in real terms. And again, you know what I've been trying to promote here is that we act as if we are the true professional who really is giving that true financial and asset type of advice. You have to be able to speak this language. And otherwise, you're leaving it into this kind of nebulous, esoteric conversation that never cuts to the chase. You're never able to really put it on somebody about what the reality is, Patrick, right? And it's because of the starting point. We don't recognize that we're going in to look at an asset that has been depreciating, and it's only to what extent. So now, arrive back at where the formulaic approach starts for your inside sales even, okay? So if I'm on the phone and I'm playing inside sales agent and I'm trying to pre-qualify an appointment, I'm going to stay with listings for a second, but I'll make the case on coaching buyers the same way. It's no different, right? So the first thing that we want to know is really, why are we going to get in this conversation with you? See, so many of us go out there and get leads, and we just presume that the person on the other end, because they came in as a lead, has the motivation to actually not sell. We're always dumbing this up too simple for ourselves. You want to sell or not? Well, there's much more to it than just that. It's like when they came in, what is it that they're actually looking for? Why are they really coming into our world, or why did we drag them into our world, and what did we expect? We have to define expectations a little bit differently when you really get going with somebody, okay? So what I mean by that is, it's so critical, forgetting about their personality types and all that at the moment, it's more important to dive into, hey, I saw that you came into my website. Hey, I overheard you saying at the soccer game you were thinking about selling. How come? You know, like we're afraid to ask that question. Why? Why are you thinking about moving? Right? Why? What is the motivation? I mean, Simon Sinek has made, a life out of asking, why? Right? So, the big why, or the big what is causing this move? Because until we understand that, we don't know how well they will hear us. Yeah. That's why you're really trying to do this, is because until you know why somebody wants to sell their property, you don't know whether they will really hear you or not. See, why we then get into a second, deeper level of motivational questions is to say, look, the reason I asked why you're moving, because somebody died and I can't keep up on the mortgage, because I got a job to go somewhere else and I need to move there to get that deal done. It's that because. I'm moving or thinking about moving because. That's the answer to why are you doing this? That fair? Laura's sitting right next to me. If you see me like kind of staring strangely off camera,
well, I like
right?
It too, because that question will open things up. I imagine with sellers really will. If you ask just a simple question, why, they get to tell their story, and you can get the conversation going, and helps build some rapport. And it's a really easy question, especially if you're talking with people within your sphere of influence. Yeah. And just get the conversation started, and then you can come in with your own expertise as the conversation progresses.
Yeah. By the way, one quick shout out, Chris Clubb, are you there with Donnie?
We're here, Danny.
Awesome. Hi, Donnie. Welcome. We've got a couple. I know, Donnie.
Hi, thank you.
Hey, buddy. Yeah, thrilled to have you here. And anybody else who's relatively new to this, even though, because I want to segue, the reason I brought Donnie up here, Patrick, at this moment is because he has extensive experience in business and in life as he arrives newly into this with Chris. And I think what's important to really get into is what the gals brought up yesterday, or at least provoked me to say next, is that what we forget to bring to the situation because we're so nervous about not knowing this new language of real estate. Like Donnie's background, if I have it correctly, is in mortgages, and very successfully so. But we always get sort of verklempt and we can't speak, like, oh my gosh, I don't know the language of this and I have to be perfectly, in this way before I can go talk. That's just not true. So somebody like a Bridget, an Angela, a Donnie, a Lisa, any of them, Patrick, can bring that life experience to a conversation that starts with, why are you thinking about doing this? And that really happens everywhere. There's no one lane. Oh my gosh, I don't know internet leads. I don't know what to say. I would never be able to talk to an expired, a FISBO. We just get so caught up in that context that we don't know. We forget to be human and bring life experience to a conversation that says, how come you're thinking about moving? Like, it can't be any more plain and simple than that. And like, I know I have some good friends up here. My good friend Ivan, who does an awesome job with blown-in insulation. Why are you thinking about, changing the insulation? Right? It's just like understanding why I arrive on your dock for a conversation and I want to have that, that two-way dialogue. The first thing that we all need to recognize is a human context, not a real estate one, right? I think that's the big thing that's been bubbling up here. Recognize the human to human. See, we all hear this crap B2B and B2C. How about just human to human? Even when it's business to business, it's me, the human, who's doing business as a businessman with another business person who happens to be human. So you want to make that relationship happen first by asking a simple question. Why are we here today? I know it sounds weird, but like, why am I on the phone with you today? You came into my website asking for an evaluation of your property. How come you need an evaluation? See, instead of just trying to go full throttle and just go right at them, hey, you came in on our website, so we sent you this, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do that, right? Nobody's ever taken a beat to say, why are we even having this conversation? And so, Patrick, I think to anchor it there is the first thing because it makes it human. The second thing is to understand that this is no easy task. To sell your house or buy a house, we know, any of us, even rookies like Donnie, Courtney, who's on my team, is listening in. Any of these people that are rookies, we're about to get engaged with these people. The largest single financial and emotional transaction most people ever make in a lifetime. That's a big statement. So to know why, then we can become better guides when this thing gets all weird and emotional. Because what happens is you can't really understand truthfully what's motivating. Wouldn't it be so convenient, Patrick, if you got taught a script that you could magically get timing and motivation? Wouldn't it be so wonderfully easy to coach you all if I said, say, A, B, and C, and then somehow miraculously everything goes your way? Well, that's not reality. So I don't coach like that. Make the human connection, right? Hey, I saw that you came into our website asking for home evaluation, so I sent it to you. Was there a reason you asked me for it? Are you thinking about making that move? And it's not that the language changed. You see what I'm saying? It's how you're thinking about what you're saying is changing. It's a connection. Because are you thinking about making a move? Is that why you asked? Now becomes human to human. It's not you spitting a script back at somebody. So let me take it further now. Now, because you're making a better human connection from the beginning, now we get into personality styles. Now we get into really their life. What's really happening? Like there's somebody sick and all this stuff is happening. Now we can arrive there better because you're going to have a tough conversation with these people at that moment about all this deferred maintenance. Because now we're back to reality of product and guidance. I have a great 7-step plan for you, Patrick. Okay? And I could take you universally through that 7-step plan. However, there's going to be some harsh realities to this. Because as I begin to talk about this with you, and I'm not saying that you would say this explicitly to somebody, you could say, I just want to let you know, I'm here to tell you the truth about how this really works. I'm not going to sugarcoat things because I want to give you the best advice to empower you, to get up underneath you and lift you up to a decision that you ultimately made yourself. But that's going to include, for me, reality. Okay? I'm not in here to try to win the pricing it right bingo game. Everybody comes in and guessing at what you'll list at, and you say yes to the highest bidder. I'm not interested. I'm interested in empowering you by saying, look, I want to go through the walk through your house because I want to see the product. Because if you're asking me to make a market for the product, I need to begin to know the product. So take me for a walk. Oops, I'm looking at an old kitchen. Uh-oh, I got a 1970 olive-colored, tub. So, all of a sudden I'm starting to see these things that are saying and screaming, deferred maintenance, penalty by the buyer. So that's why the formulaic approach is not so that, I've got to practice this script 17 times before I can go into a house. Donnie, walk into a house as fast as you can. Ask them why they're thinking about selling. Go for a walk through the product and sit down with them and have a conversation.
When you go through a house that needs updating.
Perfect.
Yeah, hang on. Go ahead, Laura.
Like, how do you... Because typically when you're going through someone's house, you want to compliment, there's really good lighting in here.
Yeah.
It's very spacious. When you have this 1960s bathroom, what do you?
It's an awesome question. I actually, this is, what do we call this? Panache, couth, right? Yeah. Is that what we call it? Do you have social graces in the way that you explain it to somebody nicely, but yet your reality? Sure. Like, I can't believe how many times I go in to compete against other real estate agents and they don't talk about any redeeming qualities of the property. Oh, you have to do this. Oh, you have to do that. That's your negative paradigm throwing up all over this person simply because you're not willing to really dig in and do the tough stuff. So some people's overreaction is to almost be obnoxious about it. Oh, we couldn't list this house unless, of course, you painted it gold, right? I mean, it's this holier than thou, this sanctimonious kind of attitude that we don't do this kind of stuff, right? I'm not saying that explicitly, but I think internally people really do feel that way. So I think what you have to do is you have to slow it down and say, oh, boy, the sun really comes in. Is this a west sunset? All the while, you're still noticing that stuff. But you don't have to club somebody over the head with it. It's their home. They don't do this every day. Maybe they didn't get good advice until you showed up. It could be 20 years when nobody's ever given them advice that you should do this. Or maybe their situation is so difficult that they don't have two pennies to rub together to do it. So you have to come in with a plan to still deal with that. Wouldn't it be nice if we walked in and everybody was, to the nines and their property was beautiful? Right? And even those are difficult. So you have to have a plan that's universally appealing for everybody. But this is exactly why we talk about the plan. Because what we do is we set it up so that you have to all of a sudden walk in and you have to say to people, look, here's the deal. We've got a 7-step plan. And the really important stuff in the 7-step plan is that we start by talking about where it could potentially be sold for. Sorry, we got a little action going in the background. That's okay. So the point is that you have to really be specific about the plan early on. If I have 7 steps and I want to talk to you about the potential pricing range first, it's for this very reason that I'm going to say you could trade in this range. If you're not in great shape, if you're in average shape, and if you're in extraordinary shape. So how do you all know when you walk in a house what they're willing to do? You don't know that. So you're going to come in with math, and you call them comparables. I call it math. You want to come in with some true understanding of the math, the statistics that are affecting the potential range within which this property could trade. I mean, all of you that are walking in and going, it's this price. Huh? How are you that good? I've been doing this for 19 years and teaching it for 10. I'm sitting here saying to myself, how do you think you're that good? You can only refine the trading range by being really good at this and then coming together with these folks, an understanding of where a decent, not a very perfect starting range is. And that's how you arrive at. So pricing in my plan, the 7-point plan, is a critical first step that says, look, we're going to go over these 7 steps. But the number one thing is tonight, I'm not going to show it to you until I explain the whole plan. But I am prepared to talk about how the math in your neighborhood is affecting your potential value, coupled with, now that I know exactly where it is on the street, now that I know exactly what condition it's in, right? And now that I really understand the hyper-local market trends when I open this up, 3 things that an algorithm online could never do. Me, I'm here. So I'm going to say that as part of the plan, Patrick, right up front, so that when I make the suggestion or ask the question, what I noticed here was that there's probably some reconditioning that has to happen. And if you can't do that, then we're going to have to discuss it in the pricing range when we get there. We're also going to have to get rid of some of your... Yeah, go ahead. Question, go.
Danny,
Go.
It's clever. Hey, I tend to defer in passing some of that off on my stager. So we'll talk about it a little bit at listing appointments and some stuff. And I'll just say something like, hey, look, let me get a second set of eyes on this place. Let me send my home stager or home designer, whatever term you want to use, over tomorrow at 2 to give us some suggestions on how to get top market value for this property in the shortest amount of time.
Yeah, it's okay.
And make them look like the...
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I still wouldn't want, I would say it like that, but I wouldn't be deferring it to that. I'd first determine, here's the potential range. Here are some things you can do low to no cost. And then the things that you could, pay for or price out at conditioning. And then once we've decided all that, then we could consider bringing in a professional stager for a second set of eyes, because those people that do it professionally are geniuses. They're like artists. But I wouldn't make it water down who you are in that moment, Chris. And I'd be careful of that. Right? Because you are the orchestra leader. So when you bring somebody else in, it's because you've arrived at that moment where it's a consideration. Okay? And I just want to finish one more thought, and then I'll open it up here for the discussion. The thought that Patrick was getting to is right here. We're on it right now. So Patrick, if it's set up correctly, I now own why they're doing this. Okay. Now I should have established that on the phone, and I should reestablish it when I arrive in the property. So let me just confirm. You're moving because you think it's worth this, right? Those are the types of qualifying questions we've talked about many times. Do you happen to have one of our qualifying questionnaires? I'm going to get our inside sales questionnaire that and Laura is understanding more and more how critical it is to establish these answers, because then we're going to reestablish them in the house. Patrick, if I am getting resistance, I'm going to say, all right, well then when we get to the evidence, we'll see what sold and what features they offered. If they offered features such as upgraded kitchens, upgraded bathrooms, new roof, new things that you haven't done, then we have to deal with that. I can't duck my head in the sand when I take you to marketplace and just ignore that. You see what I'm saying?
You broke up there for the last few words.
Okay. So did I break up for everybody?
Sorry.
Because I want to make sure I have a good line here.
Yes.
Okay. So the key here is that we want to make sure that you are reiterating to them that when you finish telling them about your 7 steps, you're going to go in and you're going to look at the real facts. Not you. Clever, I like where you were going. You were laying it off on the stager. Just don't push too hard, right? Because that's your service. But coming back to the facts of really what's sold, I'm not a fan of bringing in for sales in my CMAs. It just happens to be that over time I realize that all that matters is what's under agreement and what's sold. That's all that matters to me, because that's what's the trend right now. When I refer to hyper-local market trends, what's pending inside my CMA? That's what's trending. Those features, those benefits for that asking price, that's trending. What sold most recently to the pendings is the next absolute, undeniable, official information that's affecting value. So to me, I'm going to hyper-focus them on those things, because once they start looking at everybody else's wrong asking price, I've lost them off in the poppy fields with Dorothy, right? For sure, right? So I think you get there and you say, now we can look at the pictures of this property. How was it conditioned? How was it staged? Do you see? If you were a buyer, you would have been wowed online by the marketing of that property. See, I haven't even gotten to marketing yet. That's why I arrived there so effectively, right? So, Patrick, it's actually just involving them in the reality by going through the formula. If you try to do it on muscle, that's where I think people get lost and say things that are insulting. Does that help?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the real simple answer is basically, if you have somebody who's unrealistic on price, you have to dig deeper into the comps. You can't just say, well, you can't just look at square footage, bedrooms and bathrooms, and things like that. You have to take it a step further and then look at, okay, well, let's look at the photos of their kitchen versus your kitchen.
Exactly.
And let's compare, how the house would have shown and how it would have been perceived by a buyer. So there's more to this than just numbers.
And what keeps you rooted in that?
When I say numbers, I mean square footage, lot size, bedrooms, bathrooms, which are incredibly important.
Yeah.
But you also have to put a lot of weight on how it's going to be perceived by buyers in the marketplace.
Yeah, and what keeps you rooted in that is everything. It's that if you have the infographic in front of them and you bring it back when, let's say, because you gave me the context of price resistance in the house. What happens when it's a seller who you allowed to cheat to the high end of the range and it's not working?
Hey, Brittany.
Hey guys, we're live there. So the next thing there is that you want to make sure you continue to bring them back to the formula and where you're at in that whole thing. Does that make sense? So it's not like it's a one and done. It has to continuously happen throughout the process until you're under agreement and even closed. Right? So this compass, like think about the infographic. Can you grab one of those too? For those of you online, I'll show it too. But think about the infographic as this compass that's going to be able to deal with not just price resistance and delusion. See, they're undereducated, Patrick. That's the thing. Why do we take a whole educational approach to selling? Is because you're trying to empower them with better information, more realistic information, so that they come to the conclusion themselves like a jury, right? The more evidence I give you of smoking gun, the better off I am. If I can see, for example, that the prosecution says, oh, well, there wasn't this. Well, wait a minute, ladies and gentlemen, the jury. Yes, there was. And here it is. So you're right. If they say, well, I have a great kitchen. Well, let's look at what sold at this price. You do have a great kitchen. But this one has a whole floating island, and they have stainless steel appliances, from all top-end producers. What would you buy if you were the buyer? I mean, you have to be very pragmatic with these people and say, look, let's be realistic. I know you love this thing called your home, okay? I know. But my job is to keep you in a reality lane against competition. Buyers are making this comparative decision. It's the way everybody makes a decision. It's either this for the money or that for the money. And that's where we going through in Campfire the other day. I like the automobile analogy because it simplifies it. If I have two of the same autos, but one has upgraded sound system and wheels for the same money, which one do I buy? Duh, right? It's a no-brainer. But in our deal, because we're not homogeneous product like a car, and it's so different from one house to the next, even if you're in a planned development, you do have to get granular like you said. You really do. It said, look, I know you have more square footage, but they had an open layout. And buyers are really trending towards this open layout, as you can see from the two competitors who had it. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with your house. It's just that it might not bear the same value in today's marketplace. So you're right. Go granular. All right, more comments and questions around that. Let's bring everybody in here. I expect that this is stimulating some thought and some questions, so I'd like to spend the second half hour really digging in up underneath this. What are the things that you believe are challenging to you in this whole process in dealing with educating a buyer or seller through the infographic approach or formulaic approach? I'm looking for agents that are on teams. You should all be, right now stepping in. Okay, so step in, or my mastermind members. Yep.
Here in Arizona.
Yep. Go ahead, buddy.
I just jumped on, but we pull out that buyer infographic most times when we meet at the first property or at an open house. We kind of give our little elevator speech. I go through and Jen Hung Lee, we point to each item, we kind of read a little bit and give a little 30-second blurb on each point.
Yeah.
Now, I missed the first half of the call. Is that kind of what we're doing?
Yeah, well, basically, Grant, the bottom line is when you have somebody who resists you on price, the question is, how do you deal with that? That was Patrick's call yesterday from the campfire, was, what do you do? And so the idea is we started with the beat that you have to connect them to why they're selling this in the first place, because you're going to have to get through all those emotions. I'm dealing with somebody right now. I won't get into the personal, physical situation that the gentleman has. It's tough. And it's a family property, and it does matter to him that a family has made the most recent offer and not a developer, somebody going to fix and flip it. It does matter to him. And so you can see those are things that, get him listening. What's most important to you? Well, I'd like to pass it along to somebody who's going to enjoy it. Great, we have them, okay? But next, everybody who's come in has a similar feedback about the amount of work that they would put into this. And that's why you're allowing these people to come in much less, price. So I had to get back into a sensitive conversation about what is the benefit of living in this property. What features are great? You have deeded access to the water. You have deeded access to tennis courts. You have a flat lot. You have 4-bedroom layout. But what you don't have is an upgraded roof, upgraded windows. So that's the reality of the situation, Grant, where we're going back and trying to get through the emotional piece of this. Because like he said to me, like most people do, well, I'm not in a hurry. I said, no, I know you're not in a hurry, but we're not going, and this is exactly what I just said to him an hour ago. We're not going to be able to change the features of the property unless you're telling me that you're going to spend money, and dollar for dollar, where I'm at with this negotiation, it's just not going to be worth it. So it's just being black and white about it. I mean, we're not going to wake up 4 months from now and find a miracle. It's just not the way the business works. It just doesn't work like that. Yeah? So which line do you like?
That we're
Hold
not
on.
able to change the features.
Yeah.
Like, that's so logical.
But what do you do when you find out your seller is unrealistic when you get into negotiations?
Yeah, you do this, that's a great question. It's a great question. What do? I bring it all right back to the presentation again. Okay? See, if you have a formulaic approach and you have 7 steps for sellers and 6 steps for buyers, when you lose them, which is what you're referencing, you begin to lose their focus, right? We live in an ADD world, right? That's what, where it's too much information. You break it back out and you say, all right, let's take a beat here for a second. Let's look at how far we've come. We've come a long way in a short time. We talked about our pricing at range. We did what we could do to the conditioning, right? We started to get into the staging and we moved some stuff around the best we could. The marketing is clean. It's out there. And the good news is we made it to step 5, where in the communication stage, things are happening. We're getting offers and we're getting feedback. So let's look at the good side of this. Number 1, we're getting offers, right? That's the good side of this. But if you look at the rest of the feedback in the communication stage that we're in, number 5, it's all consistently saying, including the people who are making offers, I need to do a lot of upgrades to make this what I want. So the feedback is consistent. So the features of the property that exist are good enough to get us offers up to this point so far. Now, technique-wise, I told you stage number 6 is negotiation. So what I'm asking you to let me do is I'm asking you to let me counter them, but also let me bring the asking price down because I want to close in on the range and create more competition. I now know better than I did 60 days ago 45 days ago where the sweet spot is. So don't leave me way up here with the asking price. Let me get in here and find other families that you could pass this on to, so you don't leave me in isolation negotiating with just one. So you see, Grant, I just gave you the narrative that's real today, and I don't mind being transparent online with it. That's just the way making a market for a property really works. But you have to not be afraid to have this conversation. And the way that you get there is you're reminding them that you're strategic and that they hired you because you offered a plan. Just reiterating where we are. Say, I know it's an emotional transaction. I get it. But let me move you back to the plan and let me explain to you where we're at once again. That help, Grant?
It's just dawned on me that infographic is very important to set the stage at the very beginning, day one, opening night.
Well, it even goes, look, for you, because you're a mastermind member, so you'll have a deeper understanding. For you and I and Patrick and the rest of the mastermind members, we should have started this in the marketing, which we did. This is an expired listing I'm referencing, so you know very well what I sent out. It's the full-blown plan. So this is somebody, I'm not saying they read it or understood it, but I started trying to indoctrinate it from day one, because I know how much emotion you're going to bring to me that I have to cut through and get to the chase and remind you all the way until you're my past client that we went through a formulaic approach. Because again, that's the cool thing. As I move you along the assembly line to manufacture your happy outcome of a sale, I'm reminding you of where we are, how far we've gotten. I know you're feeling, banged up here during negotiation because we haven't arrived at this yet. But here we are. Let's take a breath. There's no pressure. There's no hurry. Why are you doing this again? Well, I can't keep up with it. Good. Okay. So we're there again, right? Now we have an offer. Remember my pricing it right? 400 said we were average. We're already at that with this offer. And I think because of the features of having deeded rights to the water, there's a little bit more than average. Okay? So now, to get that little bit more than average, do not leave me with this asking price that's getting me to have to work all the way from the threes all the way up into this. Don't leave me there. Your asking price is skewed out too far where you're only attracting the people bold enough to make a low enough offer to anchor you to reality. If you let me squeeze the whole marketplace into a tighter range, watch what will happen. We will get other offers.
But if I drop in the price, then I have no room to negotiate. I mean, I've heard that.
Okay.
What do you say?
Okay. Negotiate what? What is it that that means you're fixated on a number. What number are you fixated on?
Mm-hmm.
You see my point?
308.
Okay.
I need 308.
Wonderful. Where does the 308 number come from?
That's just what I need out of this home to move to Nashville.
Okay, so hold on. We're going to sit back down and we're going to go over the net sheet again. So when you go to Nashville, have you already looked at what the money buys that you would walk away with? Because we're at 303 and you're stuck at 308. So I'm having a hard time seeing in my head that we couldn't get you a good agent over Nashville who can make the math work over $5,000. If the $5,000 is here, I'm going to find it. But if it's not, are you telling me that you can't move? Come on now, right? So you have to dig right in, and that's where Patrick was going with this. No matter where you're at in the process, it's the logic hammer based in fact. Okay? You're the one that has to solve the problems along the entire pinwheel. You have to go and solve the immediate price range, the immediate conditioning, and like Kleber said, the immediate staging issue. Then it's up to you to do push marketing and syndication marketing. So you really need to think about these things and ask yourself along that journey, where are you at with this client or prospect? Where are you at? Where am I at in this journey of them trusting me so they'll do what I tell them to do, or better than saying it that way, they will take action based on what I educate them with to an empowered, proper decision for themselves. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And for me, I'm hearing this and thinking, I got to hit the right avatar. We have a seller that's not the avatar, and it's been a battle.
All right, we'll go into the avatar for a second. Let's deal with that, because it would be, because I still want you to deal, all of you and myself, with tough customers, right? When you pursue expireds, I think what you're going to find is that most of them are very high D personalities. That's what I found. A lot of them are high D. And one of the big reasons that they did not sell the first time is they would not listen to advice, or they didn't get somebody strong enough to match the high D with good advice. I like high Ds because I am one. I'm an ID, right? So I don't mind leaning in with a D that says, look, you want to ignore me? You can ignore me. I won't take the listing because I'm not going to sit here and make up a story just to get a listing. But if you want to listen to me and listen to why I'm saying what I'm saying, then we'll definitely get along just fine. So I think you have to not be afraid of that, Grant. And be careful when you confuse avatar with D personalities too, right? And you have to ask yourself, and you may be right, he might be the wrong avatar. By the way, why is he the wrong avatar? I should ask you. Why?
I think the personality. There's a personality, and it's not the couple we go after, Kim and Perry Ponte. It's a single person with different kind of core values, I guess, and they were referred to me by a good client of ours, who we align with perfectly. So they're both, and from day one. From start, it was a great listing presentation. We got the home listed. We cheated a little on the outside of the price range, but still we got an offer in 2 days, and we got another one 30 days later, or yesterday. And the first offer, we accepted a 302. The next offer came in, and now she wants 30 days later. 28 days later, she wants 308 now.
Do you know why?
So she's kind of changing her...
Hold on. Do you know why?
We're cutting out a little, Danny.
Yep. Do you know why she now wants 5,000 more?
I don't, and that's my fault.
There you go. So
I didn't ask.
So Grant,
I kind of looked at it like,
Grant, that's exactly the problem we all face. I don't know that I disagree with you about avatar, but until Laura and I were talking about this in our meeting today, until you are certain you're no longer the problem, it's not an avatar problem. It's an us problem, because it is on us to be the solver of the problem with the plan. So say, geez, you know what? We need to sit down and talk, because we are at stage, number 5, negotiation, right? I'm sorry, 6, negotiation. We're at stage number 6, and we need to talk about stage number 6 face to face. I want to come over because I'm a little bit lost, and if I'm the guy that's going to sell this, that's not a good thing. So now you go over with a net sheet in hand, you go over with a fresh analysis in hand. It's like starting the pricing it right and the net sheet all over again, because you're in the heat of the moment and you're there over 5,000. So say, when we started this, here's where we started, and here's where we're at today. So we were at 302, and then all of a sudden we need to get 5,000 to 6,000 more. I just want to know what changed with you, and I want to go over a net sheet to make sure that we're all doing our math. So why is it that here we go again. Why is it that you need to get an exact number 308? Why? Why? And until you know that answer, you can't then get into the rest of it. So like Patrick started this call off with this whole thing was like, okay, we're stuck. So you can be stuck at getting it. You can be stuck at negotiating it. Why are we stuck? What piece of information are we not giving them that's good enough to empower them to make the right direction, including taking less money, which just doesn't seem to be there in this market-making situation. Until you're certain that you've done the best job that you could there, it's still on you. Me. Us. Because see, blaming...
I need to ask more questions, not be, maybe an order taker. Okay, let's try and get this,
Yeah.
Why?
Grant,
I get it.
Grant, we all bail out too easily, even veterans like you and I. We bail out because we're like Rumpelstiltskin stomping around the fireplace, right? We didn't get our way. We thought this was going to be one of those nice, easy deals where we did everything by plan. The plan comes together, and then all of a sudden, kaput, it falls away because this non-avatar screwed me up, right? That's when you lean in. The dog's biting, you lean in and you say, what can I do differently? And the first thing is go face to face and ask, here's where we're at. Why are you stuck? Right? Mm-hmm. And let's come up with a micro plan inside the plan. Okay, so you're throwing down the gauntlet. You're saying to me now, I got to get you 308. Okay? So here's what I'm saying to you. You got to have your house cleaner. Okay? Because you can't add any more features, you told me. So your house, when we came in a couple times, wasn't absolutely eat off the floor, perfect inside and out. Can you do that? Well, no, I can't. Well, then we're going to have a challenge getting this 5. What can you do to help increase the value of the property if we can't get it there? Making sense here? See where I'm going? Because it's not confrontational. It's not even confrontational. It's based in reality. The reality of the moment is we have a challenge. What are we going to do about it together, buddy? Right? You got to put your proverbial arm around them and you got to dig in. And what Laura and I find is even in our toughest cases, like we had one tough case where I did make the decision, the relationship was over. I made the decision because I was giving very clear advice that there was no way the property was going to clear her out of a short sale. So I told her and her father that, who was helping out, I said, there's no more I can do. And I hope I'm wrong or the market comes lifting you up and brings in a white knight. I can't do it. So I'm going to withdraw. So in that case, I don't know whether you'd call it avatar or not. It was situational. We are not the solution unless it's a short sale, right? Period. And that's the truth. So that's how we told her that. In another case, we started off a little bit sloppy in our process. We onboarded it, poorly, but we dug in so heavily since then. We have executed our plan, diligently and we have over communicated, and we've built this good, deep relationship where we're walking down the ladder, and now we're getting very close to finally getting an offer. So, you want to fire me while I'm digging in on a tough thing? That's on you if I'm digging in. But if I don't dig in and you fire me, I'm the problem. All right, more questions about that. Grant gives us a super nugget there to deal with. Don't bail out. Go. Yeah, Grant, you know what I do? I would go until they fire you unless you have a clear situation like I did, that you just can't get through to them about the situation and that they won't work with you. Then you know you have an avatar problem. That's when you know it. When communication, which is step number 5, which includes them, when that breaks down, Grant, it's probably over. Because if you violate the formula, how are you going to get to the closing? Yeah. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
All right, we're going to dig in more.
Cool. Let me hear from some more of the agents on the call or any of my mastermind members. Anybody want to dig in? I've got some more time here, so give me another situation or a challenge.
Yeah, I have a situation for you, Danny.
Sure, shoot.
Okay, so we got a listing, and it was contingent on them finding another house. So we went out and found them a house. Their offer got accepted, and they've got a 30-day window. Now it's a lot less. But so when we put their house on the market, we started listing it at $424,900.
Yep.
And then over time have been reducing it. And so we just did another price drop down to $414,900.
Yep.
And there's definitely a lot of interest in the house, but I think that, it is the price point. It happens to be in a neighborhood where there are more mid to high range 300 priced houses. There are a couple other in this higher price range, but there are only a couple of them. So most of the market's looking for these lower mid 3 range homes. But what do we do when we get to this point? Because we've already started having to reduce our commission. The seller has, a maximum amount that they have on their mortgage, so there is a number that we can't go below. Mm-hmm. Any suggestions as we move forward? We literally just did this last price drop this morning,
Yeah. Well, the
So
question.
any suggestions going forward? Because ultimately we're going to lose both deals if we can't get this house sold. But I don't want to get into a situation where we end up having to sell their house for nothing.
Yeah. Unless you have to.
Okay.
Okay. Unless you have to. Like, so let me sink that in here today. Unless you have to, because there is an occasion where it's a good idea to maybe do that. Okay, there is an occasion. I don't want to speak in absolutes. 0 is 0. 50% is 50%, right? So I think it becomes very important to understand that we may very well have a situation in life that's like that. Okay, so. Because what you want is to consummate a transaction. What you can make is always negotiable and variable, right? So that's the case. So I would tell you this, is that, number one, what is it that they owe? And have you done a net sheet, including at the latest, if they got full price for the price reduction you just gave them, and you netted out commissions and you netted out cost of closing, have you done a net sheet yet?
Yes. So they owe $395. We did the net sheet. So the last net sheet that we did, we had it at a listing price of $420 with a 5% commission, just to kind of see where that was. So now we're dropping it down to $414.9, which means we're going to have to keep dropping our commission every time.
Yeah, you're right. How about that? You're right.
Yeah.
You do. You have no, if you're not getting offers at full price where you can cover the cost of doing business here, you're right. You'll be lowering the commission down to 0 until it sells just to get the buy side. So I'm not even going to try to pretend that that might not be the case. Now, technique wise, are there things that you could do? Sure, I did a whole, 8-episode TV show on A&E about cutting the price in half and bidding it from the bottom up and trying to come that direction to try to find out if we could get over there. So are there certain market-making techniques you could use? Absolutely yes. However, barring some really aggressive auction-like mentality where you really come from the bottom up, you have to grind from the top down. There's no alternative. In our business, you're either cutting the price in half and bidding from the bottom up, or you're slowly dropping the price. And if that price is cutting into your commission, and that's the only way out because the market won't bear it otherwise, but yet you still get a buy side, you'll do it. You'll do it all the way down to 0, unless, just like my scenario, they're willing to do a short sale, right? I mean, things are only...
And in this situation, they can't do a short sale because you really have to prove that you have a financial hardship. And when they're just going out and buying a new home, they're like one of those situations where, they can apply for the loan, but they don't have the cash on hand.
Yeah.
That's going to be a lot harder through the short sale situation.
Yeah. Have you had good traffic there?
It's gotten better as we've been lowering the price.
Okay, so you just lowered the price last night. How does it look? You getting a lot of requests for showings?
No, so we literally, we were just doing like minor $500,000 reductions over the first couple of weeks there. And then we just started doing bigger drops. So just last night we dropped it another 5,000. So it just came up on the MLS today.
Yeah.
At this 414 number. And so I've got to go back through and call everybody that looked at the house, came by the open houses, and let them know that there's been another price change. But so far we don't have any appointments booked yet.
What's your gut tell you this thing is worth?
What's that?
What does your gut feeling tell you that this property is really worth?
Well, see, and here's where it's tricky, because they had previously had it listed and had an offer on it for $410, which the other realtors were willing to sell it for no commission because they were going to work with them on the buy side, except for that they got pushed into a situation where they had to find a house within 5 days. They couldn't find a house, and so they had to walk from that offer. So I know it would be really easy to get an offer in at $410, and we might have to go that far. But, my hopes was because there's so many updates on the house, and it sits in a new construction development. So, comparatively pricing, the new construction starts at the high 3s, And that's without all the landscaping, the upgrades,
Okay, hold on.
everything that's been done to this house. So
Yeah, Lisa.
I think it's well worth the money. I mean, it's over $100,000 with the upgrade
Lisa, hold on.
in this property alone.
Lisa, stop.
But
Lisa, stop. Lisa, you're selling yourself, and the market couldn't care less what we think as realtors. You're selling too hard, and you're defending against reality. Reality is going to come to you regardless of what you think. And it is.
right.
Don't sell yourself. You're selling yourself. And it's very dangerous. Don't back yourself into that corner. Your job is to be a realistic market maker. The market will either make an offer at 414 for the features and the benefits that this property offers, or it will not. Period. Paragraph. End of story. You don't need to already sell yourself on it. You've done a good job. You've marketed it. The people see what's there. They did get an offer for 410. That's encouraging. Just try to get back there and get out of Dodge, no matter what you get. I'm just telling you, you're selling yourself. Don't do that. Because what it's doing is it's blinding
Why not
you.
put a reverse offer out there?
Yeah, true. If anybody comes in multiple times, the question was, could you put a reverse offer in? So, in other words, could you offer it back out to somebody for 410 who's come and seen it once, twice, or likes it and is there? Could you say that? Sure, get the seller's permission to actually hint it verbally. Say, look, we were under agreement for 410. If we could get that back in writing right away, I could get this deal done for you. You need their permission to be that aggressive, but that's a good suggestion on a reverse offer.
Well, and that other offer that came in was through another realtor that had it listed prior to us.
Yeah?
So we would have to, do some finagling and get in contact with that agent and see if their client was still interested in.
Why would you do finagling?
That is another option.
Yeah, why would you do finagling? Hang up with us and pick up the phone and call them. Say, hey, is your guy still kicking around? Did he ever buy anything else?
Yeah.
Yeah, but what? Yeah, but what?
Oh no, I didn't say but. I just said yeah. That's definitely needs to happen. I was just kind of hoping on the ground that if we did it, change the marketing, reposition the house, change up the pictures, the description, did all of that, that we might be able to find a buyer who was willing to pay more for the house. But we're getting down to a time crunch, and so yeah, it's really just
Laura is shaking. Laura is shaking her head. No, go ahead, Laura. Say what's on your mind.
Honestly, I think if you were going to get 410 for the house, you would have already gotten it with the price drops that you've done.
Yeah.
That's what my gut's saying.
I think it's good diligence on the marketing side to go take new pictures and spruce it. That's your
You
job.
checked all those boxes.
Yeah, you check. Good point. You check the boxes. That's good.
That is
But the
good.
market's speaking quickly here.
Yes, and you have a very small time frame. So I like the reverse offer idea. I think that would be probably your fastest result to see what the feedback is from that. Because even then, even though she got a 410 in the past, it may not happen again, realistically.
Right. But it's definitely worth a shot to talk to the sellers and say, hey, look, we do have this as an option. Let's call this agent again and see if that buyer's still around.
Yeah, I wouldn't even wait for the seller. You don't need to. You don't need. Oh yeah.
Anybody that looked at it in 30 days.
You hear what he said?
What's that?
I'm talking about a reverse offer to everybody that looked at it in the last 30 days.
Okay.
Yep. That you'll need. That you'll need the permission of.
Leverage to go to each one of those buyers and
Yeah.
say, hey, we have an offer on the table. We wanted to give you this reverse offer to see if we can get your buyer off the fence
Yep.
and see where it goes.
Yeah, I like that. Just to hit everybody up and see. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Good. Let's get off of that one. You know what to do. Go do it. But don't. Whatever you do, do not sell yourself like you just were. You get going down that lane, and then we're not hearing the reality, and then we're less likely to go have realistic conversations with the seller. That's my experience when I've sold myself in the past. Don't do it. Because that's what sellers do. That's actually where this call started, and I'll end it with that, is that we get sellers selling us all the time on how great their house is and what they did. Yeah, great. I don't disagree with you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, but here's the reality of what's pending and sold. This is the marketplace, and you're going to ask me to go to this marketplace and get you a certain number, and I have to deal with this reality. So the only way that we can keep ourselves clean-headed and pure is the same way I was saying it to Grant. Grant is still the problem on that other deal, because he hasn't gone and sat still and had a realistic conversation with them about where they're at and what they're willing to listen to and not. So it's really about, you've got to have a realistic conversation with yourself first, like I said to him, like I did with myself, and like you're doing. You've got to get reality yourself and then go communicate it. Make sense, Lisa?
Yeah, definitely. So you guys are thinking, like, since we literally just did another $5,000 price drop today, you don't think, and we're going to be doing an open house on Saturday and Sunday, you don't think we should wait for that? You think I should just talk to the sellers and just do a reverse
girl,
offer
you're talking to a beast of an animal right here. I mean, there ain't no slow in my life, right? If I think I have momentum, if you were here, you'd see my eyes roll up in the back of my head like a shark. People hire me to get a job done. And when I know that job is close, I'm going to lean in fast. I'm not waiting for the tooth fairy to bring me a deal. I'm going for the one that's in hand. And Chris Kleba, who was making that suggestion to you, is a wildly successful buyer agent in Lake Norman and has been through all of it, right? So he knows that buy side. You've got to go aggressively. I'm not saying what you just said isn't also accurate, meaning you're right. You just price reduced it. But what you're ignoring is that they got a 410 before and it was acceptable to them. So with this marketplace that you've already made with these X number of people who saw it at a higher price, I would say, hey, everybody, number one, I don't know if you saw the price reduction to this. But number two is we'd like to make a reverse offer to anybody who's already seen it, that if you're willing to pay $410, another $5,000 off the asking price within the next 24 hours, it's acceptable. Now, if your price reduction down to $414 is super beneficial and brings in somebody at $412, then it's off, right? Deal's off. Follow?
Right. Now, when you let everybody know that you're offering this reverse offer, do you just let them know that they're the only ones you're offering it to, or do you kind of hint about the fact that we are introducing this to everybody who came through that house?
What do you think?
So
what do you think?
What do you think? Will come back and be the offer for it.
What do you think?
Here's a tactic that we use here at the lake. We'll send a reverse offer to a buyer's agent and say, hey, we wanted to see if we can get your buyer off the fence. We're opening up the first lines of communication here, throwing the first punch. Let's see where your buyer's at. That gives you the leverage to go to every other buyer's agent and say, hey, look, we've got an offer on the table. You don't have to disclose who initiated the offer, but it gives you the leverage to go to every other buyer agent and say, hey, we've got an offer on the table. Where is your buyer at? Do you think we can get them?
Yeah, but hold on.
And guess what?
Yeah, Chris, hang on.
The price goes up.
Lisa, what do you think the answer is to that question?
Well, I like the idea of letting them know that if they think they're the only ones that you're giving this offer to, versus if you were saying, like, look, we are presenting this offer to, a handful of people that expressed interest, I think that would spur me to say, okay, not only do we want to put an offer in, but we want to add another 1,000 or 2 on it just so they accept it. If
you do it alone or to everybody who's already seen it?
I think if you let every agent know that you're presenting that offer to a couple of agents, not just one.
Correct. When you're making a market for the seller, the most important thing is competition. So if you have multiple interested parties, you offer it to everybody. I'm going to leave you with this thought because I have to go, okay? Here's the thought. My suggestion to my seller was that we are lowering the price in a counter offer to this current buyer. But on Sunday morning, the price will change to that very same price for the entire marketplace. And it is a significant drop off the asking price. So not only am I giving them a small window out of respect, but I'm going to open it wide open come Sunday morning. So you got essentially 24 hours to make a decision. You follow me?
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know how that saying goes.
Thank you guys so much for
yeah,
that.
you know how that saying goes when you sit on the pot, right? That's what you're asking, right? All right. On that note, Chris Kleber, Donnie, go get him down in Lake Norman. Thank you, Lisa. You rock, and everybody else who participated. Patrick, thanks for kicking this off today. Good luck, everybody, this weekend. Get out there and try this stuff, and you'll find out that it's empowering you, which is my goal here every week. Give you tools that you can be empowered by, and you can get what you want. Lisa, we'll be hanging in there for the update. We'll see you next week with a sold, won't we?
Yeah, thanks, guys.
All right, bye-bye. See you, everybody. Good work.
Bye.
Good work. Good work. See ya.